Podcast 9, Accountability.
Awaken the leader inside. Follow the path of leadership. Never give up. Never stop trying. Get up. Believe in yourself. Not every day is going to be easy, but you got to challenge yourself. You need courage. Be ready. Stop waiting for it to happen. Go make it happen. Harness the power within. You were destined to be a leader. Follow the path of leadership. Awaken the leader inside.
Podcast 9, Accountability. Hey guys, welcome back to another podcast. My name's Dave Rubalcava, and I'm your host here at Awaken the Leader Inside. Today we're going to talk about accountability, one of my favorite topics, and also the most difficult. So we're going to talk about accountability and why it's so important. But before we get into why it's so important, I want to talk about why we probably fail at it. I think the most difficult thing, as you've probably come to realize after listening to the Foundation series, is that it's tough. It's tough to be honest about what's happening. It's tough to be honest that some things are normal and they're gonna be difficult for you. But the hardest thing to really do is to actually look in the mirror and say, you know what? This is my fault. And when you become a leader by default, everything's your fault. Everything that goes wrong is going to fall onto your lap. And I think the reason why we struggle with that as leaders is that before we transition to that is not the rules that we played by. The rules we played by were what I do and how I work and how I contribute. That's what I'm being held accountable for. But when you become a leader, it's not about that anymore. It's about your ability to develop people, or your ability to get people to execute the objectives of the company. So I think sometimes when the hardships come down and we start to be held accountable, we want to put the blame somewhere else. And I think that's normal and natural, but you are not going to find success, quite honestly, if you can't say, you know what, my team failed, I failed, I'm going to fix it. You are not going to find success. And if you don't exhibit those types of behaviors, you're not going to encourage your team to exhibit those behaviors. And you're going to have a hard time challenging them when you're not accountable yourself. Is it difficult? Absolutely. Is there bad days? Absolutely. There's going to be times where you're like, how did I get to this point? But accountability is at the core of everything we do as a leader. Once you don't have credibility and being accountable for your actions, you don't have a career. There's nowhere to go. It doesn't matter how great you are with other pieces. When the buck stops with you and you're not there to be accountable for it, you're not going to have a career. So I just want to briefly share something with you guys, because I mean, you're going to hear accountability a lot. It's tied into pretty much everything we do. At some point, accountability is going to come into play. But I want to share with you, I was exposed to this book probably about 15 years ago by a district leader, and it's called the Oz Principle, Getting Results Through Individual and Organizational Accountability. It's written by Roger Connors, Tom Smith, and Greg Hickman. And I'm going to tell you guys, I read this book at the time. Remember I mentioned those 5 years that I was struggling? I actually read this book with some hesitation. I was like, whatever, this book's not going to help me. And it changed everything for me. It changed my ability to look into the mirror. And at the core of what this book is really about, because I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, but I mean, it's on the website if you'd like to purchase it and look at it and read it. But at the core of it is that taking personal ownership through your organizational goals and accepting responsibility for your own performance is the only way you're going to be successful in business and in life, quite honestly. So this book did a lot for me. This book talks about businesses that have been successful and businesses that have failed. And, just even recently right now, there's a lot of out of business right now. And a lot of it comes back to accountability. And were we honest about where we're at as a business? Are we honest about what we're struggling with? Are we honest about what we're going to have to do to get us out of this? And so this book did a lot for me. So check it out. It's a great book. Now, I want to share something with you guys. And I think I briefly talked about it in some of the podcasts in the Foundation series, but I wasn't accountable for a lot of the first couple years of my career. And I just didn't understand that dynamic, that in order for you to be successful, that I'm going to have to be brutally honest with things, I'm going to have to take responsibility for other people's failures and then, get them to step up and deliver results or teach them to learn from their own mistakes. And I had a hard time doing that because I just didn't want to accept that I was a failure. And there was many times I sat in my car and, before I went into work, I'd sit in my car and I'm like, does my boss hate me? Am I really this bad? Am I really this horrible? And it was hard. It weighed heavy on my heart. It weighed heavy on my heart that I felt like an absolute failure. But even then, even in those moments, I refused to be accountable. I refused to put my energy into changing myself. I put the energy into challenging that accountability and challenging someone holding me accountable. And you can already see where the results were going to go. I mean, they didn't go well for me. I didn't win that battle. But I look at those moments, and those were very hard moments for me in my life where I just didn't get it. I just didn't want to see the truth. I didn't want to accept that as hard as I'm working, it's not going anywhere. And it's not going anywhere because I'm doing what I think is in the best interest of my career versus doing what's in the best interest of what the company is asking for me. And I just didn't get that piece. And it's such a dark and lonely place to be. But I'm going to tell you right now, you can change that. And is it easy? No. But you have to raise your level of awareness, and you have to not take things personal when someone is challenging your ability to get something done or your ineffectiveness of driving something. You have to be able to go and internalize that. And I'll give you some advice. There's many days that I go home frustrated. I mean, it still happens now, quite honestly. But I go home and I think about, did I do my best today? Did I do what's right for my teams today? Was I at my best? And a lot of times I can honestly say I didn't. Or is there something like, what can I have done differently? That's the gateway to accountability, is to ask yourself the truth, like, what could I have done differently? What can I do to make myself better? So let me ask you a question. If you think about your career right now and you're thinking about wanting to grow, or you're thinking about maybe you're just not where you want to be right now, what have you done to get you to this moment? Have you been really honest with yourself? And if you have, that's great. And if you haven't, that's okay. But you're going to have to really start searching for the truth about why you don't want to be accountable. And I'm going to be honest with you, some people will never be accountable. They won't, no matter what happens at the workplace or even in life for that matter. They will never be accountable for their action. But you know what? You have to be accountable for yours if you want to be a successful leader. And some people will never get there. That's okay. That's their choice. Your choice is to be accountable for what you're doing and accountable for your results. So be comfortable with being able to acknowledge and look in the mirror and ask yourself the hard questions, because you know what? I'd rather ask myself the hard questions about where I'm at than have somebody else, like my own leader, challenging my accountability. I'm going to be a lot harder on myself than anyone will ever be on me about my own performance. So I'm going to leave you with a challenge. I want you to find your closest friend, your closest colleague, someone that you really trust. And I want you to ask them something very simple. And I want you to ask them, do you think I'm accountable? Do you think I take responsibility for my own results and my own performance? And hear them out. And don't be surprised if you get the answer you're not expecting. And don't be surprised if they tell you no. And if they tell you yes, great job. Like, get ready for the next value, get ready for the next challenge, stay accountable, stay objective. But if they tell you that you're not accountable, don't be offended by that. Somebody's being honest, someone that you can trust is telling you the truth. Take that as a gift and use it to help you start building your future. Stay tuned for the next podcast. Always remember, awaken the leader inside.